So in this session we are going to answer the 2020 Mathematics Paper 2 examination question paper. This is a revision for the examination classes. If we are having exams, probably some of you within the next hours, some of us in the next few days, some of us in the next few months. So you can use this as a revision. So what we're going to do is that we're going to solve questions from the past paper and then see how we can just be reminded of the things that we already know, so that we can go into the examination prepared. So what are some of the things that you have to come with in the exam? Number one, you need an electronic calculator for this paper, that is paper 2, and second, you need geometrical sets and geometrical instruments, that is a geometrical set, and graph paper, I think these will be provided, but just come with them for the sake of just to be fully prepared. So these are the things you need. Just my general advice I would give on paper 2 is that you need to consider time, and as you're answering the questions, start by looking at all the questions in the question paper, that is from the first question to the last question, because there are 12 questions, section A and section B. So section A, answer all the questions. Section B, you have to choose to answer only 4 questions, so that is 6. You leave out 2. And then what I would recommend you do is, as you are going to answer these questions, is make sure that you begin by answering the ones which you are comfortable with. In short words, start with the ones, the easiest, the ones which they are easier to you. Don't start by answering difficult questions. They'll just use up your time. Just start with the questions which are easier, then go and answer the questions which are hard or seem to be difficult. So that is how you should approach it. Answer the easier questions first, then go answer the ones you feel like they're the hard questions, because you don't want to waste time on a question which definitely you won't even probably get right, because it's a hard question for you. So you're provided with mathematical formulas, algebra, a series, trigonometry, statistics. These are the formulas you can use. Don't forget, you can come here to check on the formula if you're not sure what the formula, how it should be on trigonometry or geometric progressions. You can just come here and check the formula on page 2. Right, so without wasting much time, let's get started. And we have the first question, which definitely is coming from the matrices. So given that we have a matrix A, which is 7, 9, 4p, 5p, find the value of p for which the determinant of A is -2. Second part, hence find the inverse of A. Alright, so this question requires you to find the determinant and then find the inverse of A. So here we're going to practice how to find the determinant of a matrix. That is what this question requires us to do. And also, how do you find the inverse of a 2x2 matrix? Because this is a 2x2 matrix, because it's got two rows and two rows and 2 columns. So if you have got a matrix which has got 2 rows and 2 columns, so let's say we have this, we have A, B, C, D as our matrix. So the determinant is equals to A times this is D times D, which is A multiplied by D. Then you subtract B multiplied by C, which is BC. So this is how you find the determinant. So if you want to find the determinant of matrix A, what we do, we multiply the 7 times this, which is 7 times 5p, 7 times 5p, and this one is going to be 35p, and then you subtract 9 times 4p, which gives us 36. So 9 times 4p, it is 36p. So it's 36, we have 36p. That should be equal to, they've already told us that the determinant is -2, so that should give us -2. So what is the value of P? So you've got 35P minus 36P. What is the answer? So I'm going to put it here. The answer is -P, right? Because you're subtracting a bigger number from a smaller number. So -P is equals to -2. So when you have this, you divide by -1 on both sides so that we get rid of the negative on P. So we just have P is equal to a negative into a negative, that is 2. So P is equal to +2. So that is the value of P. Hence, find the inverse of A. So we want to find the inverse of A. So obviously, for us to find the inverse of A, we'll need more space to work on, because you'll be given an answer sheet. So we're just going to go on the next slide so that we can have more space to work on. So we'll still work on this question. Alright, so what we want to find is the inverse of A. So how do we find the inverse of A? So once we have the determinant, which is -2, and we have the value of P, therefore we can conclude that our matrix, before we even talk about finding the inverse, what is this matrix? So the matrix A is equal to, we have 7 in the first column and 9 in the 7 and 9 in the first column. Then you have got 4P, which is 4 times P, and P is equals to 2. So 4 times 2, that gives us 8. And then we have this one is 5 times 2, that gives us 10 on the second. So this is the full matrix that we have, the actual matrix that we want to find the inverse for. So for a 2 by 2 matrix, for you to find the inverse, you are going to, we can use what we call the formula for finding a 2 by 2, the inverse of a 2 by 2 matrix. The formula which says that A inverse, if we are finding for A, should be 1 over the determinant of A. We multiply that by the matrix A, by the matrix A, but only this time we are going to swap this diagonal column, the one which is in this way, slanting like this. Okay, we're going to swap these values here. So remember, this we said is A, C, B, D right here, if you can see. So if this is our A and this is this determinant which will come here, then what's going to come here for the inverse will be, we're going to swap D will come right there on the corner and A will come on the bottom corner here. So you're going to have D and A will be here, they'll swap. That is for the inverse, remember, that is for the inverse. This is the formula for finding the inverse. Then for C and B, you are going to change the sign. If C is positive, we'll make it -C. If B is positive, it will be -B. So this is the formula for finding the inverse of a matrix. So can we find the inverse of the matrix A? Okay, so let's see. So the inverse of the matrix A will be A inverse is equal to a negative and a 1 on top there, 1 over the determinant. What is the determinant? They've said the determinant is -2. They've told us here. So determinant is equal to -2. Multiply this by D. Remember, D is the value, is the one which is here, but this time is going to go on top. 7 will come down, so we'll have 10 there, and 7 will come there. Okay, and then we're going to change the sign For 9, it will become negative 9. Negative 9. 8 will become negative 8. Okay, so now this is the formula for the inverse of A. This is the inverse of A, and the formula is this one right here. So if you want to go ahead and simplify, you can divide, you can multiply this. A half times 10 becomes negative 5 times this times this times that. Or if you want, you can just leave it here. I think there's no harm. That's still the inverse of A, so you can leave it here. So this is the formula to find the inverse of a 2x2 matrix. You use this. This is what we use. And on the second part, it says Mutola and Mwambi were to be selected as members of an 8-ball team. The probability of selecting Mutola is 7/7, and that of selecting Mwambi is 9/10. Find the probability that only one of them is selected, none of them is selected. Okay, so this is the question is on probability, and I'm going to rush through some of these questions because try to cover as much as possible. So let me put this question in the next slide so that we can easily capture this. Alright, so Mutola and Mwambi were to be selected as members of the 8-ball team. The probability of selecting Mutola, so we have the probability of, okay, we're going to use MU for Mutola, which is 7/8, and the probability that is for Mwambi, we use MW for Mwambi, is equal to, we have 9/10. So that is the probability for Mwambi and probability for Mutola. And then there, so we have the probability. If the probability of picking Mutola is 7/8, the probability of picking Mutola, is 7/8. The probability of picking Mwambi is 9/10. So that means that the probability of not picking Mutola, will be equal to 1 minus 7/8. That is the probability of not picking Mutola, which probably will be the probability of 1/8. Okay, just did a mental calculation there. So which is, if you subtract 1 minus 7/8, the answer should be 1/8. So you can do that on a calculator, and yeah, that is. So again, this is the probability of picking Mutola, 7/8. The probability of not picking Mutola is the total probability, which is 1, minus the probability of picking him or her, which is 1/8. Now the probability of Mwambi is 9/10. The probability of not picking Mwambi will be the total probability, 1 minus the probability of picking Mwambi, which is 9/10, and then this should give us the probability of not picking Mwambi as 1/10. So right now what we have is the probability of picking Mutola and the probability of not picking Mutola, the probability of picking Mwambi and the probability of not picking Mwambi. Now what we want is the probability that only one of them is selected. So now when you're answering these questions, you need to look at the marks so that you get an idea of what you're dealing with. So 3 marks is something that will require you to go an extra mile, do some extra solving, because they wouldn't just dish out 3 marks like that. So just know that a little bit of work is needed here. So only one of them is selected. To find the probability that only one of them is selected. So to find the probability that only one of them is selected, we need to find, so the probability, we're going to put it on this side. So say the probability that only one of them is selected, the probability that only one will be equal to the probability, so let me put it right here, so it will be equal to the probability of selecting motor and not Mwamba. I would really have loved if they had just used different names starting with different letters right now, but anyway, so Mutola and not Mwamba, or the probability of selecting Mwamba and this is and not Mutola. So this is the probability of only one, means we either get Mutola and we leave out Mwamba, or we either get Mwamba and we leave out Mutola. So which means when we have P, probability of M and not MW, that means this and in probability means we have to multiply. The or means we have to add. So we're just going to replicate this and do exactly like that. So we have the probability of, we'll just say, of getting 1, since the question requires us only one of them is selected. Okay, so the probability that only one is selected is equals to the probability that we select Mutola and not Mwamba. So which means we multiply the probability of selecting Mutola, the probability of Mutola, times the probability of not selecting Mwamba. So we need M not selecting Mwamba, will show with a complement there, plus, so this probability, we add the probability of selecting is either we select Mwamba and we do not select Mutola. Probability of not selecting Mutola with the complement there. So in mathematical expression, we are saying what is the probability of selecting Mutola? That is 7 over 8, and then we say, okay, we're going to multiply 7 over 8 multiply by the probability of not selecting Mwamba, because we do not want Mwamba here, we only want 1. So Mwamba, the probability of not selecting Mwamba Mwambi. So Mwambi is 1 over 10. So it will be 1 over 10. Then we add, which means we can get Mwambi, and the probability of getting Mwambi or selecting Mwambi is 9 over 10. Right here it's 9 over 10. So we can get Mwambi by 9 over 10. We can get Mwambi by 9 over 10, and we leave out Mutola, and the probability of leaving out Mutola or not selecting him is 1 over 8. Mutola complement, not selecting Mutola, is 1 over 8. So we multiply this by 1 over 8. So right here, this is what we have. So if you have you're allowed to have a calculator, so you can just get a calculator and just do this on your calculator. So that is 7 over 8 times 1 over 10 plus 9 over 10 times 1 over 8. So we can do this step by step, or you can just do everything on your calculator. So for the sake of just step-by-step instructions, we're going to say, okay, 7 over 8 times 1 over 10. That should give us, that is, I think we can mentally do this. 7 times 1, that is 7, over 8 times 10, that is 80, right? Plus, we have 9 times 1, that is 9, over 8 times 10, that is 80. And then you have got 7 over 80 plus 9 over 80. We just add the numbers on top there, and we have got 16 over, then you just put 80 there. That's a weird 8. You just put 80 there. 80. Okay, so this is the probability of selecting only one. 16 over 80. So think up to this point we've answered the first part. The probability, only one of them is selected. I know probability can be a bit confusing, but let's just try to get it step by step. Probability, how did we find this question? Just to summarize, we say that we find the probability of selecting Mutola, which they gave us to be 7 over 8, the probability of selecting Mamba, they gave us to be 9 over 10, and then the probability of not selecting Mutola, it means we are going to subtract the probability of selecting him from 1 over 7, and we found that to be 1 over 8. The probability of not selecting Mwambi is 1 over 10. So if we only want one of them, that means we can have two different scenarios or two different situations. We can have Mutola and not Mwamba, or we can have Mwamba and not Mutola. And then for us to find the probability of selecting Mutola and not Mwamba, that is scenario number 1. Scenario number 2 could be Mwamba and not Mutola. But remember, we want either of them. We want only one of them, so we can use or right here. So or means we can either get the situation for Mutola and not Mamba, or the situation of Mamba and not Mutola. The situation of Mutola and not Mamba means that you get the probability of Mutola, you multiply by the probability of not getting Mwambi. I've been saying Mamba, it's Mwambi. Then you add that to the probability of selecting Mwambi and not selecting Mutola, which means we add the probability of Mutola times not selecting Mamba. You add that to the probability of selecting Mwambi times not selecting Mutola. So you can just go through this step by step, easy, and you should be able to get this idea. Okay, so I'm going to jump right next to the second part. I think because of time, we're going to end this video right here on the second question. So, and the second question is 2 marks, so we shouldn't expect much. We should expect less work from here. So, what is the probability that none of them is selected? So, the probability that none of them is selected is, we know the probability of selecting Mutola is 7/8, but not selecting Mutola is 1/8. The probability of selecting Mwamba is 9/10. Not selecting Mwamba is 1/10. This is 1/10 right here. So which means that the probability of not selecting Mwamba, Mutola, and probability of not selecting Mwamba should be equal to the probability of not selecting Mutola times the probability of not selecting Mwambi. I don't know why I've liked Mwamba. I guess it's easier to pronounce than Mwambi for me. Okay, so which means the probability of getting Mutola, which of not getting Mutola, is 1/8. So we're going to multiply 1/8 times the probability of not getting Mwambi, which is 1/10, not 9/10, sorry. The probability of not, which is this one, is 1/10. So it will be 1/10. So which means the probability of that none of them is selected will be 1/8 times 10, that is 80. So this is the probability that none of them is selected. We multiply the probability of not selecting Mutola times the probability of not selecting Mwambi. So none of them will be selected, and that will be 1/10. This is kind of that's a quick way of working through this question. So because of time, we have to end on this part here, and then we'll jump on the next questions in the next video. So if you haven't already, you can subscribe to the channel. If you haven't registered for lessons, you can register for lessons if you would like something like that. So we'll see you in the next video.